Welcome back to the channel, folks. Today on Bearded Prince, I am going to test beginner tips and tricks for painting miniatures with this right here. My very first Warhammer 40k kit includes paints, includes a brush. All right, so let's crack this bad boy open right now, see what we got inside, and see what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna show you some of the other cool things that I've been printing.
All right, guys, and here they are. We skipped the build part because this is a painting video, not a building video. These guys are just pushed together, so there's not like there's any gluing. And we are going to be priming these bad boys here with the color shot cans from Michaels, the blackout matte black, and Head in the Clouds matte white. Gonna give these guys a quick spray down. It actually only took one good coat for good coverage here with the black. This primer was really good. It wasn't until I started putting the white on to try and do the zenithal prime that I started to get a little intimidated by it. And as you can see, I was being a little too gentle. I did only record this one pass. I wound up making a second pass, and I got all of the can all at once. And as you'll see in a second here, it was a lot heavier on the top. It was actually kind of where I wanted it to be, near the top. Just the rest of it was very speckly. So in future attempts to actually do a zenithal prime, I'm going to look for some better cans. So we're starting off here with the Miniac blue. Starting off in the pauldron just because I don't know yet how thin paint is and how thick paint is. So I figured it was a nice big open area, and it would allow me to move the paint if it was either too thick or too thin. If it was too thin, I could move it around a little more. If it was too thick, I could spread it out more and try and water it down. Looking back on it, I'm a little dry at the beginning. It took me a little bit to figure out exactly how to get the paint to move and how to get it to flow. Took me a little while. But I started to get a little bit of the hang of it. The backpack, it was more of just I needed to get a good first coat on there. I was being very, very gentle and very patient with the amount of paint I was putting on. As you can see right here, I didn't realize that I had missed one of the connections to the sprue. You can actually see a second one on top of his head, which I'll get later. Thankfully, this one was I wasn't so concerned because it was right at the base coat. I was pretty confident I was going to be able to cover that up, which it did. The Citadel paint covers incredibly well. I probably could have been a little thicker and been fine. And as you can see, I'm starting to get a little more of okay, I can be a little heavier with it and be fine. I'm not using the supplied brush right now. This is just a Michaels number 5 synthetic brush. I knew I needed more coverage, and I feel bad for people that get that starter brush and have to base coat in that itty bitty little thing, because I can see how base coating with that little brush could be very, very cumbersome of a chore. So that's a good tip number 1 that everyone had said, is to get a good brush that you can just spread paint, especially for a base coat. You're not doing any detail. So while we're filling this guy in, and here's the other little head nubbin that I forgot to get, which came off fine. So my art history here is absolutely non-existent. I have absolutely no formal art training, anything like that. I did take a intro to class when I was in college, which basically turned into like a botanical thing because we only had a few people in the class. So I learned how to draw an apple and shade it. That is the extent of my art background. But I did grow up building like the snap together plane and car kits, and I had fun with those, building them, and And I have very fond memories of building the planes and throwing them out the window to see if they would fly, which they did not. So we're moving on to the black here. I'm going to start basing in the bolter and his belt. I did switch over to the Citadel starter pencil. I did switch over to the Citadel starter brush. It was a little bit smaller of an area, so I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit more control. And as you can see here, it actually came out pretty good. The blue fanned out. I didn't really lose any detail at all. The black is covered. I have good coverage overall. And as you can see now, as I'm moving to the back of the bolter, I'm starting to get the grasp of how to thin the paint and not spend absolutely forever with a dry brush, with a brush that is dry trying to spread paint. Because this stuff does dry incredibly fast. So yes, this stuff dries very fast, which is one of the other tips I took advantage of since I have a 3D printer, was to 3D print myself a wet palette that actually has a textured lid to it for dry brushing. So when we start playing around with dry brushing, we'll have something to experiment with. But adding the wet palette absolutely made, I think I probably would have lost my mind with trying to keep wet paint on the brush. Right now we're just moving in behind the legs here. Any of the little flexible armor parts that need to be black, I'm trying to get that bad boy up in there. So we're moving on now to the gold paint. Just a dab will do you. Starting again with the Citadel starter brush on the bolter, I figured that was the best place to start the gold because most of the gold is in very fine area, little area. Most of the gold is in smaller areas that are a lot more detailed. So I figured by starting on the bolter, it would give me a little bit more of a chance to see how the paint was moving. And if I needed to adjust and make it a little thicker or a little thinner. I did take a break just to paint the cross. I wanted to see if I wanted to do just the cross in gold or the whole bottom piece as it's described in, as they show it in the box art. I wound up doing a 90%. I left the tubing around the magazine well area. Left that black. Moving in, I zoomed way on in here so you guys can kind of see. This was my first real fear, was getting in on the chest emblem, because it's such fine detail that I didn't want to spread the gold where it didn't need to go. And I am doing absolutely super light coats at the moment. And as you can see at the end of it, we didn't really go outside the lines. Hooray for me. Time to move on. So we're going to head over to the pauldrons here. As you can see, I'm slowly, now as I'm getting more comfortable with the control of the brush, I am starting to get better with loading the paint up and keeping it thinned, which is allowing it to flow a ton better. And these pauldrons weren't bad. I did have to do a little bit of touch up, thankfully. So it was just corners with the McCrack blue. Now we are moving on to the wash. This was intimidating. When I first stuck the brush in there, it filled up the entire brush. And I went, oh my God, how much is this going to take? So you can see me trying to be, that was my second attempt to load the brush. I was being a lot more gentler in how I wicked it up, because I know this stuff is supposed to flow everywhere. So again, I figured the bolter was the best place to start, because all the recesses, it was going to go in there anyway. If it got a little darker, okay, that's fine. All I kept remembering was everyone that says you work with washes or contrasts or anything like that, just keep the stuff moving. And at one point you will see, as I'm working my way in the helmet, I realized there was a massive puddle in there, and I did the best I could to wick it up. And as I was pulling the excess off, I just started moving it and putting it in other areas to make my best use of it. And here we go. Here is a fully shaded, fully painted Space Marine. And I'm gonna take a itty little bit of white. We are moving on to the detail work on the pauldrons. So these are bright white, it says. They do stand out really well. I don't think they need any shading. They came out pretty good. As you can see here, I sped this little footage up a little bit because at this point, now I'm starting to kind of get the hang of it. You can absolutely see the tip of my paintbrush after 3 models is absolutely bent to crap. At this point now, I'm just putting some dots in for the eyes because I want to clean the eye socket up, because I have a paint set from my wife. So she has kindly donated to the cause her 24 tubes of acrylic, going with the darkest thing I can make, the brightest red I can go with here for the eyes. Because of how much shade is on there, I wanted the eyes to stand out a little more. I figured it would be a little bit better than just putting the white dot in there. Kind of not always want to follow the instructions all the way, and literally just dotting the red in there, trying the best I can, literally like picking up. I think I literally used the curve of the brush to scoop the littlest dot I possibly could of red out of the puddle, and I'm pretty proud, man. I didn't do too bad on those eyes. The last thing we are going to do here is take care of the base. So I'm using some of the Armageddon dust here. It is basically paint with sand mixed in it. We're just going to slather it on the... we're just going to slather it on the base here. Spread it around best I can. I actually took a foam paintbrush and I ripped the foam off. And that's what I'm using for a handle right here, so I don't ruin any of the brushes. And it actually worked out. I think that is going to be my new spready tool. We stick them on for the very first time at the finished base. So I'm quite proud of myself. Last thing we're going to do, I'm just going to grab one of the rando brushes out of the big cheap pack and some black paint and just run it around the base. Clean that base up from the priming. It's quick and easy a little bit right at the end. I had such a great time doing this on stream. If you guys like, come on down, watch it live. And now that we are done, it's time for the glory shots. Check these guys out. I mean, first ever painted miniatures. My fog machiney thing looks kind of funny, but it works.
Okay, and that's a wrap, everyone. I want to thank all the content creators out there that put out beginner tips and tutorials like Squidmar, Rogue Creations, Ninjon, Painted for Combat. The list goes on. It's tutorials like yours that push me to dip my toe into this world, and this right here is far beyond anything I could have expected for my first attempt. I am stunned at watching some of those tutorials and being able to immediately put them into practice. Like I said earlier, I have absolutely no formal art training. Outside like an intro class I took in college for my bachelor's in nursing. I am going to be doing more of these do beginners tips work videos in the future. As for these guys right here, we'll see. Maybe I'll add more highlighting to them, you know, a little edge highlighting, get some of my crack blue out and kind of lighten up some of those spots that were washed down. Or I may just leave them as is, as this is these are my first Warhammer. These are my first miniatures I have ever painted. And aside from what I think are places I can improve on, I'm really happy with the final result. So tell me what you guys think of my first attempt. Comment on down below on how your guys' first painting attempts went. So what do you guys think I should take on as my next beginner tip? Comment down below, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell notification, because I do also go live while I'm painting these. So come on down, give it a watch, drop a tip. And if you guys watch on any of the other live streaming platforms like Twitch, anything like that, check the links in the description. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.